Hello everyone, welcome back. So in this video, we'll be creating a filterable image gallery where you can display image based on category. So we have four categories here. We have adult, baby, family, and maternity. So right now we are in adult category. So if I switch to baby category, all the images are going to switch to baby images of babies. If I go to family, you see some family photos, and if I go to maternity, we'll see some maternity photos, some photos of pregnant women. So this can be very useful. You can use this for a photography website or um, any other website where you want to display different categories of images. So this is what we are going to be building today. I hope you enjoy this, and let's get started. Alright guys, so we're going to start building this project. So I already have a JSON file called images.json with links to different images of each categories. So we have adult categories, and I'm just using I copied the link of these images from Unsplash. So we'll be fetching the images from Unsplash through this link. We have baby, we have family, and we have maternity. So I'm just going to close this for now. Then I'm going to create my index.html file, and I'm going to create my CSS file, and lastly I'm going to create my JavaScript file. So I'm going to start by putting down my boilerplate, and I'm going to change the title of this to Filterable Image Gallery, and I'm going to link my style sheet. I'm just going to correct the name. This should be style.css. Yeah, and I'm going to link my script file, and we're going to start writing the HTML. So first I want a header, and inside that header we're going to have an h1, and I'm going to say filterable image gallery, and under the header we're going to have a section, and I'm going to give this section an ID of gallery section, and inside this section we're going to have the nav bar for the categories, and we're also going to have images container. So I'm going to put a nav here, and I'm going to give it an ID of nav bar. Want a list, so I'm going to create another list, and I'm going to give it an ID of nav list. Then inside here we're going to have list item, and I want each list item to have the class of uh, list content. And for the first one, we want adult. I'm just going to copy this down 3 times more. So we have adult, we have baby, we have family, and we have maternity. maternity. So under the nav, we're going to have a div, and I'm going to give it an ID of all images container. So this here will be placing all the images, and inside we're going to have another div, and I'm going to give this a class of image dash container, and inside we're going to I'm just going to put down 4 of this for now, but later I'll be doing this dynamic from our JavaScript. So I'm just going to put an image tag AFS. I'm going to put an image inside. I'll go to my JSON file, and I'm just going to grab let's just grab the first image link and paste it here. So I'm going to copy this um 4 times, 3 times more, so we have just 4, and I'm going to save. So I'm going to start my live server. I have an extension installed in Visual Studio Code called live server. I'm just going to start it to preview this on the browser. So this is what our gallery look like for now. So we're going to go into our CSS and start styling things. And this is not going to be responsive, so you can add media query to it if you want it to be responsive. I'm not sure I made it responsive, so we are going to do this. But if it's not responsive and you want it to be responsive, you can simply add media queries to it. So I'm going to go back to Visual Studio Code, and I'll go to my CSS file, and we're going to start writing our CSS. So I'm going to get rid of the default styling, set margin, padding, and I want box sizing to be border box. I also want all list item, all list style to be none, and I also want font family to be poppins. I like reading poppins a lot. I know for like almost all my video I've been using poppins. So let's move on. So I'm going to put target all images, and I want the width of all images to be 100%. So this is going to make all images to take the size of their container, full size of their container. And I want border radius to be 15 pixels. Next, I'm going to style the header, and for the header, I want text align to be center. Excuse me. And I want padding to I'm going to give it a background color of ash AA. Um, yeah, and I want the color to be white, so that will be ash FFF. And margin, I'm going to give it a margin bottom. I'm going to type this out. Margin bottom of 1 rem. So let's just save and switch to the browser to see what we have now. So this is what we have right now. So it's getting better. So let's go back to Visual Studio Code, and I'm going to grab the nav bar. Did I give it an ID? Yeah, I gave it an ID of navbar. I'm going to grab the navbar, the ID of navbar, and I'm going to set the height to 6 rem, and I'm going to add padding 2 rem, save. I also want to grab the um another list inside the navbar. So I'm going to say navbar ul, and I'm going to set display to flex, and I'm going to give it a gap of 2 rems. Want 2 rem for the gap, and I also want it to be centered. So I'm going to add justify content, set to center, and I want the font size to be a little bit bigger than the default font size. So I'm going to set font size to 18 pixel and save. If you come, this is what we have right now. Let's switch back and continue styling it. And I'm going to say navbar, ID of navbar ul. I want the ul, but I want the li. So I'm just being specific with my selectors here. So I'm going to, I want on over. So on over, I'm going to set the border top. I want border top, and I want to set it to solid. I want 2 pixel, and I want the same color for the navbar. So I'm just going to copy this down, and I'll change this to bottom and save. If I come over to my browser and over, I will have this line at the top and bottom. Let's switch back to Visual Studio Code and continue styling. So active, I'm going to add a class of active, and what that class of active is going to do, we are going to be changing it with our JavaScript dynamically. I'm just going to copy the same styling we have here, and what I'll do, I'll go to my HTML, and I'm going to add the class of active to this first one. And if we go to our browser, you see we have it. So we are in app.categories. These are, we know the categories we are in. So I will switch back and let's continue styling. Now I'm going to start styling the images. So I'm going to grab the all images container, and I want padding. I want 4 rem top and bottom, and 2 rem left and right. And I want background color to be light pink. So I'm going to give it X value of hash F 4CE D5. So this light pink. I'll save. All images container. I'm supposed to have a background. This background attachment is supposed to be background color. Yeah. If I save, we have this light pink here, and I'm going to set display to be grid. And for the grid template column, I think this is what I did to make it responsive. So I'm going to say grid template column. So you can use this pattern to create responsive grid without adding media query. So I'm going to set I'm going to do repeat auto. I'm going to set it to auto fit, and so repeat auto fit, and I want min max. I'm going to set the min max value to 250 pixel, and I want 1 arrow. So what it's going to do is going to set each box to auto fit, and it's going to be a minimum of 250 pixel, and it's going to repeat it 1 arrow for each box, so 1 fraction for each box. If I save, this is what we have. Let's try to see if it's responsive. So I'm just going to, so if it's kind of responsive, yeah, it's responsive. uh so I'm going to add a gap, of 2 rem, just to give it some spacing. Yeah, so let's move on. So I'm going to take the all images container again, and this time I want the image. So I'm going to say dot, remember it has the class of dot image container. I'm just being specific with my styling. You can decide to do dot image container and get the image directly, but I just want to be specific with my styling. And I'm going to set transform, scale, and I'm going to add nothing. Then I'm going to add a transition. So I'm going to say transition. So, and I want all, and I want 0 point, I'm going to set the transition duration to 0.5 seconds, and I'm going to set it to if. And what I'm trying to do, I just want to create that nice over effect that scales the image up anytime you hover on it. I'm going to paste this, and I'm going to add the um, over attributes to it, and I'm going to remove this transition all, and I'll change the scaling to 1.1 and save. So if I come over and over, see the nice scaling scales up smoothly. Excuse me. So next we are going to add an animation. So the animation is going to scale the image down from 0 and going to scale up to 100 when we switch to each category. So I'm just going to copy this selector from here like this. I already have transition added to the image, so you don't want to add the animation to the image. The reason is because if you add the animation to the image, the transition and there's going to be a conflict. So, but let's just try it and see. Just know if I'm really sure. So we're going to add animation to the image. We're adding it to the image right now. So I'm going to put down animation, and I want the name of the animation to be fade, and I want it 1 second, the animation duration. I'm going to set it to if, and I want the fill modes to be forward. So it's going to stay at 100 when it scales up, and we are going to create the animation. So at keyframes, going to add at keyframes, add the name of the animation as the identifier, and I'm just going to say from. Now we don't need to add to because it's going to go back to the way it was at 100. So from, I'm going to add transform, scale, I'm going to set to 0, and I'm also going to set the opacity to 0 and save. So you see the transition is no longer working. There's a conflict because we are adding both animation and transition to one element. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to go back to Visual Studio Code, and I'm going to remove this. So I'm adding this animation effect to the container surrounding the image. This this image container here instead of the image. So that way the transition and the animation is not going to fire at the same time. So let's save this and try it now. So you see the animation works and the transition works. So you want to take note of that. So that's all for our styling. We are going to switch to our JavaScript. So inside my JavaScript file, I'm going to start by bringing all the variables. I'm going to say const, and we have the all images container, and we're going to use get element by the ID, and it has an ID of all images container. And I just want to mention one thing. One thing I recently started doing is to keep constant naming conventions with my classes and my variable names. So for multi words, try to use Pascal camel case. So the first word starts with lowercase, and the next word starts with um, caps. And for my classes, what I do is to space them with a dash. So I think that's a good practice to do. It helps you know how to get the right classes for you give to each element without going back to look at it from your HTML. So I'm going to put down the nav list, and we're going to use documents. We're going to get the element by the ID. It has an ID of nav dash list. And lastly, we're going to get the I'm going to call this nav list content, and we're going to use document.query selector all for this because we have more than one. So I'm going to select all the list content, and save. So that's all the UI variables we need. So first, I'm going to create a function to make request to this um, JSON file we have here locally on our computer, and you want to make sure it's in the same directory with the rest of your files. So I'm going to use async, and I'm going to say function, and I'm going to call this function request image. So we are requesting for the image, request images, or let's just use image. Or I think it will be better to call it images because we are requesting for all the images. And I'm going to get the response, and I'm going to say await fetch because this is an asynchronous request, and we want to pass in name of the file images.json. And I'm going to put in my um, get the data, and I'm going to await the response. I'm going to add .json. So I'm going to put my events over here, all the events we want. So first, I'm going to create a DOM content load event, and I want the I want all adult images to load by default. So I'm going to create a DOM content load event. So I'm going to say document dot add event listener, and I want to listen for a DOM when the DOM content load, and I want to call a method called load images. Yeah. Now that event does not exist, so we are going to create it. But before we create that event, I'm going to create a function that is going to fetch all images based on the categories. So we'll be passing the categories dynamically when we click. So I'm going to come to, I think that this is the load, that's what we are going to call for load images. So I'm going to create a function I'm just going to put a comment here. I'm going to say event callback. So you know the functions that are for events and the normal functions we created. So I'm going to call say event callback, and yeah, we're going to have our load image functions here. So I'm going to say function load images, and we're going to pass in a parameter called category. We want the category of um, uh, I'm going to pass in a parameter called category. Yeah, we want category, and we're going to call this request image function. So I'm going to say request images, and this is going to return a promise. So I'm going to chain dot then inside we're going to add categories. I'm going to call it categories. Yeah, or better still, um, image images category. I'm just trying to think of a meaningful name for everything I do. So images categories. Yeah, I think that's better. If you have a better name for it, you can do that. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to look through this. Okay, let's just log this in the console. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to say console.log. So we see what we have, and I'm going to log the um I want this to be lowercase. So I'm using camel case for my naming conventions, and save. So when the DOM content loads, which when all the HTML and CSS load, it's going to call this function automatically. So what I'm going to do, let's open the console. Go to our console. We're getting undefined from script.js. Let's go back. Why are we getting undefined? So dot then request images dot then when the DOM content load, we are calling um load images. Oh, we have to return. So here we have to return data. We have to return data. So if I go back to my console, so yeah, we have arrays. So this the we have an array with objects inside. So each category is an array of objects. So this is what we have. So I'm going to So you see, we have, if you look at the order, we have the array with the index of 0, just with one length. And inside that index of 0, we have other arrays with objects inside it. So I'm going to return, going to get the index of 0. And so we just have arrays of adults. So this is what we have here. So I don't want to log this in the console. What am I going to do? We can access um, the key of an object by using so if I say images, what I'm just going to bring back the console.log, and I'm going to show you something. So if I say images and I add adult to console.log adult, this should be a string, and save. You see, we are only getting the adult images That's because we can access the key of an object by using the array syntax. So that's what we are going to be doing. So instead of outdoors, we are going to pass in these categories here. And when we click, we are going to pass in the text content of the category that is clicked as the category argument here. So I'm going to remove this, and what I'm going to do, we're going to loop through this. So I'm going to say I'm just going to get rid of the console. So I'm going to pass in category here. So I'm going to say category, this parameter here, and we are going to loop through it. So I'm going to say for each because it's an array. So we can use for each to loop through it. So I'm going to say for each. So for each, what are we going to call this? For each image category, for each, let's just say for each category, yeah, I think that will be better. But we already have category, yes, so I'm just going to say for each image category, for each image category, for each is going to take a callback, and I want to create an element. So this element here for each category, we are going to create all these, and what it's going to do is going to loop through all the images we have there, and it's going to create a div and an image for it. So for each, I'm going to say for each, so I'm going to say const, and I'll call this image container, just like we have there in the HTML image container, and I'm going to set it to document dot create element and want a div element. So I'm going to pass in div, and I'm just going to copy this down and want to create an image element too. So I'm going to say image, and I'm going to pass in img, just add my semicolon. So next I'm going to set the image container, and I'm going to give it a class name of um, just exactly what we have in our HTML image container. If we don't do this, our styling is not going to take effect on that element, on this element. So I'm going to say image, and I'm going to set the sort attributes, and I'm going to pass in the source attribute because that's the attribute we want, and I'm going to set it uh to image category. So I'm going to set to image category dot source. If yeah, so we are going to set the source of, because that's all what we have for each object. For each object we have a link that's going to get an image for us from Unsplash. So we're going to set that link as the source of the image. So yeah, and I'm going to take the image container, and I'm going to append child. I'm going to pass in the image. Then we also want to insert this into the DOM. So I'm going to grab the all images container, and I'm also going to append the image container and save. So what I'm going to do right here in the DOM content load event, I'm going to put in parentheses, and by default I want it to load all adult images. So I'm going to say adult and save. So let's go back and look. So this is what we have. I'm just going to get rid of all these first four images from our HTML. So I'm going to come to my HTML, and I'm going to, yeah, right here, and I'm going to comment this out and save. So let's bring this down. So this is what we have for the adult images. Now the next thing we need to do, we need to um, create a an event listener, add an event listener to all these list items we have here. So when we click, it's going to um, get baby images for us based on it's going to get the images for us based on what we clicked. So I'm going to come back to my JavaScript and I'm going to add another event. So I'm going to add this event to the nav list. The reason why I'm adding it to the nav list is because I don't want to create multiple events where you have to click on each list item. So I'm going to add it to the UL. So I'm going to say nav list dot add event listener, and we want to listen for a click event. So when that click event fires off, we want to call the function. I'm going to call the function filter images. So I'm going to I'm not going to put in a comment here, say functions. Um, so this is where all our regular functions are going to go in under this comment. So I'm going to create the click event. I'm going to call function, and I'm going to say filter images, and I'm going to pass in the event object. And what do we want? I'm going to get the element that is clicked first. So I'm going to say const, and I'll say clicked. I'll call this clicked element, and I'm going to set it to event dot target. And why I'm doing this is because I'm going to be using this multiple times inside this function. So I don't want to be typing event.target, event.target. So I'm just going to say click element for short. So I'm going to use an if statement here. And what we want to do, we're going to check for the class of list content. So if the element that is clicked has the class of list content, we are going to do something. But first, let me just show you what will happen if we don't do that. So I'm just going to say console. I'm just going to console.log. Let's just console.log object save. So if I do that, I'm just going to expand my console a bit. So if I click on anywhere inside the UL, we're going to have object in our console. If it's counting. If I click on the list items, we're going to have anywhere, just anywhere inside the UL, and we don't want that to happen. We want only when we click on the list items. So I'm going to get rid of this, and I'm going to say if I'm going to use a conditional here. So I'm going to say if event, no, we already have clicked element here. So I'm going to say if clicked element dot class list. I'm going to use class list, and I'm going to say if it contains, there's a method called contains you can use on class list. It contains list content. So if it contains list content, what do we want to do? We want to take active state. So I'm going to say we don't have active state yet, but we're going to do that. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to call the load images contain the load images function again. This function we created here, and I'm going to pass in the clicked element text content as the categories parameter. This load images function we have here. So I'm going to say clicked element dot text content. So we want the text content, and I'm going to set this to lowercase. The reason why I'm using to lowercase for this is because I'm going to show you. Just hold on a second. So I'm going to say to lowercase and save. is because the reason I'm using to lowercase to convert the text content to lowercase. If you come over here, you can see it's capitalized. The first letter is a capital letter. But if you come to our JSON file, we have it the key as everything lowercase. So that's why I'm using to lowercase to change the text content. So if I save this and let's come to our browser and click baby, we are going to see the baby images appear among all these images. But we don't want that to happen. We want the adult images to go off and whatever categories we are currently in. If you click on another category, we want that categories to go off and the new categories to load into the DOM. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to, before I call this function, I'm going to take the all images container and I'm going to set the inner HTML to nothing and save. So let's try that again. So if I click on baby, it's going to empty the all images container. It's going to load the baby. The next thing we want to do, we want to keep track of the state of the categories. So that's the reason why I said active state the first time, but we have not gotten there. So right now we're going to create a function for that. So below the filter image functions, I think this filter images should be among our callback event callbacks. So I'm just going to cut this. I'm just realizing that now. So I just want a space here. I'm going to come below here where we have our regular functions, and I'm going to create a function called active state. I'm going to say function active state or active categories. I think that will be better, but let's just call it state. So active state, and I'm going to pass in the clicked element text content as an argument, as parameter. So I'm going to say clicked element text content. So I'm just trying to keep everything descriptive so this could be easier for you to understand. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to take this nav list we selected there with query selector, and I'm going to loop through it because query selector returns I think it's a node list, yeah, and you can actually loop through a node list, not like an HTML collection where you need to convert to an array first. You can loop through a node list. So let's just console.log nav list. Let's see what we have. So I'll just say clg nav list, and I'm going to call this function down here active state. So if we go to our console, we are going to have all this UL, and it's going to be a node list. So let's just loop through it and see. So I'm just going to use for each to loop through it. So I'm going to say nav list dot for each. So you see we can access the for each directly. So I'm going to say for each not nav list actually. That's the reason why we are not getting it. We want the nav list content. I'm just going to go back. Nav list content. That's what we use query selector all for. So let's see again. So yeah, we have a node list. I was wondering why we are not getting the node list. So we can actually loop to a node list with for each. But for example, if it returns HTML collection, you have to convert it to an array first. So, but we can loop to a node list. So I'm going to get rid of the console, and I'm going to say dot for each. So for each for each list content, yeah, I'm going to call that list content. For each list content, we are going to, what do we want to do? We are going to use a condition here. So we are going to say if the list content dot text equal to the clicked element text content that we're going to pass in as the parameter, what do we want to do? Then we're going to say list content dot add. We're going to use add. This should be class list dot add. Class list dot add, and we're going to add the class of active. This should be a string. I'm going to add the class of active. Else, what do we want to do? We want to remove. So I'm going to copy this and say else, and we're going to change this to remove. So what this is going to do is that when we click on, I'm going to stop calling the function here. We want to call it each time we click. So um, so when we click on another category, if it's equal to any of the let me go back. So if we click on any category, if the text content is equal to the clicked element text content, so we are looping through this list here and we are taking the text content. If it's equal to what is clicked here, so we are basically saying like if baby is equals to baby, add it to baby. And if we click on family, but of course we have family as one of the list and we are looping through it, add it to family. So that's what we are doing here. So I'm going to come over here, this filter images event we have here, and I'm going to call active state, and I'm going to pass in clicked element, and we want the text content. So I'm going to say element dot text content and save. So let's try that. Let's try it. So if I click, we have baby. If I click, I'm just going to close my console. We have family and we have maternity. So let's check if it's responsive, because that's all we're going to do. We're done with this project. So it's actually responsive. So we're in, it's not, wait, I just discovered that it's not adding the class. So why? If it's equal to click element text content, list content dot class list dot add active. Are we making any mistake? This should be text content. So we want the text content, yeah. So that's the reason why. So if I click on baby now, you see it's going to highlight baby. So we are in baby categories and baby categories, and it's just going to fetch it dynamically because we are passing for the filter image functions. We are passing the clicked element text content here. So whatever we click is going to pass the text content and going to automatically fetch that particular object for us rather than creating different image requests for each category. So if we created a filterable image gallery with just 54 lines of code, of course we have some spacing in here just to make our code look neat. So let's try it out. Family is active right now. Maternity can go back to adult, and this is also responsive. But let's see how responsive it is. So I'm just going to open my Chrome and I'm going to, yeah, So I think it's pretty responsive. So let's try it for other devices. So, but you can actually alter this with media query to make it look better in mobile. So and what's responsible for the responsiveness is this styling we have here. This grid template columns repeat auto fit 250 pixels. So if we should, I'm just going to go back. Let's look for a screen size. I think this one. So it's not going to be responsive because this is a very small screen. So you can actually alter it to what you want, but I think for the other screen size, it's responsive. So yeah, all right, guys. So this is our filterable image gallery. I hope you like this video. If you like it, leave a like, leave a comment about your thoughts on this video. Share the video with your friends and don't forget to subscribe. I love you guys and I'm going to see you next time in another video. Thank you.